The night was cold and quiet. Wind moved through the dry trees, making soft, sad sounds. Rick sat alone in his small home on the edge of the human colony. The lights were dim, and a warm drink sat in his hand. He lived far from the main town. That's how he liked it. Peaceful, silent, and away from people. Rick was a former soldier. He had seen too much in the war between humans and alien factions. Now he just wanted to live a quiet life. No noise, no visitors. No trouble, but trouble. Came anyway. Knock, knock. The sound was soft, but in the silence of night, it felt loud. Rick looked up, confused. No one ever came here, especially at this hour. Then came a voice, soft, shaky, almost a whisper. Please, please open. I have children. We're cold. We need help. Rick stood slowly. His heart beat faster. That didn't sound like a human voice. It was different, calm, yet with a strange tone. He reached for his old weapon under the table, just in case, and walked to the door. He opened it halfway. Outside, under the weak moonlight, stood an alien woman. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her body was thin, almost too thin, and shaking from the cold. Behind her stood two small alien children, no older than 6 or 7 in human years. Their eyes were big, glowing faintly in the dark. The woman dropped to her knees. Please, just one night. My children have not eaten. We've been outside for days. I beg you. Rick stared at them. He had seen many alien races before. She looked like one of the Lurians, tall, pale skin with long dark hair. But this one looked broken. Her eyes were full of fear and sadness. I don't take in strangers, Rick said carefully. I understand. She whispered, but if you shut this door, I fear I will not wake tomorrow. And my children. Rick looked at the kids. They didn't cry. They didn't move. They were too weak. He opened the door wider. Come in. Just for tonight. The woman lowered her head and whispered, Thank you. Inside, Rick gave them warm blankets. The children sat close to a small heater, trying to stop their shaking. Rick handed them some leftover bread and soup. They ate fast, like they hadn't seen food in days. He watched them in silence. Something in his chest tightened. The woman sat in a corner, holding the smallest child in her arms. She looked at Rick, but didn't speak. You got a name? Rick finally asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Neva, where are you from? From the refugee camp. Outside Zone 7. Rick raised an eyebrow. That place was shut down months ago. She nodded slowly. They kicked us out when I couldn't pay for food anymore. I tried to work, but no one wanted an alien widow. That word caught Rick's attention. Widow? She looked down. My mate died. He was one of the Lurian soldiers who fought beside your human army during the last war. He died saving your kind. Rick said nothing. He remembered that war. Too many died. You've been out there since then? 3 weeks, she whispered, moving from place to place. Doors closed. People threw rocks. My children are all I have. Rick looked at her torn hands. She had no weapon, no food, no money, just 2 hungry kids and nothing else. He sighed and stood up. You can stay here tonight, but tomorrow we'll see. Neva nodded, grateful. That's all I ask. The little boy, thin, with soft blue skin, looked up at Rick. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom said, This is our last chance. Rick looked into the child's eyes. Something hit him deep inside. This wasn't just some alien story. This was survival. Hours passed. Rick sat in his chair, watching the small family sleep on the floor by the heater. He tried to stay calm. Tried to tell himself he was doing a simple favor. One night. Just one. But his heart wouldn't stay still. Why did she come to his door? Why did her eyes look so familiar? Why did he feel like somehow this moment had changed everything? Asterisk. The Smell of warm soup still hung in the air, but the silence had changed. Rick woke early. He found himself staring at the alien woman and her children, still asleep near the heater. Neva was curled around them like a shield, like a mother who had spent too many nights fighting off the cold, fear, and hopelessness. Her arms trembled even in sleep. Rick had seen many sad things during the war, but this image right here on his wooden floor felt different. It didn't belong to war. It belonged to a world that forgot kindness. As the sun started to rise, something stirred. One of the children sneezed. Neva's eyes shot open, wide with panic. She sat up fast, holding her son. Her breath was shaking. Rick spoke gently. Easy. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you. She looked around the room, confused for a moment, then slowly relaxed. And then it happened. Tears. Not loud sobs. Not cries for help. Just silent tears. Dropping down onto Rick's clean wooden floor. Neva quickly turned her face, but Rick had already seen. She tried to hide it, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. But the damage was done. Why are you crying? Rick asked, keeping his voice soft. Neva didn't answer at first. Then, through clenched teeth, she whispered, because no one's been this kind to me in years. Rick froze. Years, not days. Not weeks. Years. She looked at the bowl on the table, the same one Rick had placed soup in. Last night, I forgot what warm food smells like, she said quietly. Rick sat down near her but kept some distance. How long were you outside? Neva blinked slowly. Since winter started. We moved during the night, hid during the day. I sold my necklace to buy bread once. Then I sold my shoes. I was going to give my coat away too, but the kids were already shaking. Rick looked at her thin, worn cloak. You should have gone to human aid stations. She gave a sad smile. We tried. They looked at my children and told me they don't accept beasts. One man kicked my son. Rick's hands tightened into fists. He hated the way some humans treated aliens like dirt. Rick poured more soup and gave it to her without a word. She took it with both hands like it was gold. Then Rick asked the question that had been burning in his chest all night. Why did you come to my door? Neva stared into the bowl, her voice soft but strong. Because when I walked past your window, I saw something I didn't see anywhere else. What? A human who didn't lock the door the moment he saw me. That hit Rick harder than he expected. Later, Rick went to get more firewood outside. While he was gone, the little girl, barely 5, walked toward the table. She picked up a spoon and dropped it. The sound startled her, and she quickly tried to hide behind her mother. Rick came back inside, just in time to see it. The girl was scared of a spoon. Rick crouched down. It's okay, he said. You didn't do anything wrong. The girl didn't speak, Neva explained. In the camps, if a child dropped something, they got slapped. Rick's jaw tightened. Even the little ones? Yes, Neva said quietly. That's why they don't cry anymore. They learned not to make noise. Rick walked to the table and placed 2 small wooden toys down, one a carved ship, the other a tiny animal. He didn't say anything. Just left them there and walked away. The children stared at the toys like they were made of magic. That night, Neva sat near the fire again, holding her daughter close. Rick asked, Do you have any plans? Neva shook her head. I used to dream of finding a job, a home. But dreams are heavy when you're carrying children with no shoes. Silence filled the room. Then Neva looked Rick straight in the eyes. If we're a burden, we'll leave by morning. I don't want pity, Rick stared back. You're not a burden. You're just lost. She didn't reply, but one more tear fell. Only this time, Rick didn't pretend not to see it. That night. As Rick locked the door, he noticed footprints near the window. Not theirs. Someone had been watching them, and they weren't human. The wooden toy lay broken near the fireplace. Rick found it early that morning, cracked in two, with little dusty footprints around it. He didn't get angry. He just stared at the broken toy and thought about the broken lives now sleeping under his roof. Then he heard a soft voice behind him. "I'm sorry," the little boy said. "I dropped it. I'll fix it, I promise." Rick turned and looked at the child. His big eyes were full of fear, not guilt, the same look soldiers had in war right before they ran for their lives. Rick knelt down. "It's just wood," he said gently. "You don't need to be afraid," the boy blinked. "But in the camp, they beat us for less." Rick didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, walked to his old workbench, and began fixing the toy with his hands. The boy watched in silence, as if watching magic. Later that morning, Rick stood outside, staring at the empty sky. The wind had picked up, and something in his chest felt heavy. Behind him, Neva stepped outside. She was wrapped in Rick's spare coat. "You're not used to company, are you?" she asked softly. Rick didn't smile. "No, we can leave." After breakfast, Rick turned toward her. "Where would you go?" She looked away. "Somewhere quieter. Maybe the forest. No one chases us there. You'll freeze." Neva said nothing. Rick sighed and leaned against the porch post. "You could stay for a while, until you figure things out." Neva looked up, surprised. "Why?" Rick didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Because I know what it feels like to have no one." Later, Rick opened a wooden box in his shed. Inside were old things, war medals, photos, and a small baby blanket that was never used. He picked up the photo of his late wife. Her smile still felt alive. They had planned a family before the war took everything. Rick stared at the blanket, then at the open door where the alien children played quietly. A thought began to form. Dangerous, heavy, real. Could I really raise them? Could I be a father to children who aren't even human? He looked at their faces, so innocent, so scared of the world. They didn't need a soldier, they needed a home. That evening, as Rick sat down for dinner, Neva finally spoke. "You've done more for us than anyone. I don't understand it." Rick answered simply, "You knocked, I opened." "But why didn't you shut the door like the others?" Rick looked her in the eye. "Because when I saw you, I didn't see an alien. I saw a mother. I saw pain. I felt myself." Neva swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. "You don't know what it means to be seen like that." Rick leaned forward. "Let them stay. Let you stay. I have the space. I have food. But if you stay, you're not just guests anymore. You're family. That's what it means." Neva's hands trembled. "You're offering to adopt them?" Rick nodded once. "Yes, if you'll allow me." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't hide them. Ending suspense. Suddenly, boom! A loud sound outside made them all jump. Rick grabbed his weapon and rushed to the window. In the trees, something moved fast, too fast for a normal animal. A small drone buzzed away, its red light blinking. Someone had been watching them. Again. Rick's single quotes. S voice was cold. "We're not safe yet." Asterisk, the first stone didn't hit Rick. It hit the little alien boy. And it wasn't thrown by a soldier, but by a human child. Rick spun around. He had taken Neva and the kids to town for supplies. Just food and warm clothes. Just one short visit. He thought if they stayed close and quiet, no one would notice. He was wrong. The marketplace froze the moment they arrived. Every eye turned. Every mouth went silent. Whispers spread like fire. "Is that a Lurian widow? Why's a human man bringing them here? He must be crazy." Then came the first rock. It hit the boy's shoulder, and he stumbled. Neva screamed and pulled her children close. Rick moved fast, standing in front of them, shielding them with his own body. "Who threw that?" he shouted. No one answered, but the hate in their eyes said everything. An older woman stepped forward, pointing a finger at Neva. "She's not welcome here. Her kind let the war happen." Rick stepped forward. "Her husband died protecting humans, and now she's protecting her children from you." The crowd didn't care. Another man shouted. You think you can just bring aliens here like stray dogs? Rick's fists clenched. They're not animals. A shopkeeper sneered. Then, why were they living in the forest like one? Rick wanted to punch someone. But he didn't. He turned to Neva. We're leaving. They walked away under the weight of angry stares and silent judgment. The little girl held Rick's hand tighter than ever. Back at the house, Neva sat in a corner, silent. The boy's shoulder was bruised but not broken. Rick put medicine on the spot. The boy didn't flinch. He was used to pain. I shouldn't have taken you there, Rick said. Neva whispered. No, we shouldn't have followed. You. Rick looked at her. Don't say that. I warned you, she said. Where I go, danger follows. Even in silence, we carry marks. Rick stood and walked outside to cool his head. He hadn't felt this angry since the war. As he chopped wood to burn off the rage. A shadow moved behind the trees. Rick froze. You've been followed, said a voice. Rick turned fast, gun in hand. It was a tall, alien gray-skinned, dressed in a cloak, with strange metal pins on his chest. Rick kept his weapon up. Who are you? The alien raised a hand. Peace. I'm not here to harm. I came with a warning. Talk, Rick growled. You took in the Lurian widow, didn't you? Rick narrowed his eyes. So what? That widow is marked. Not just by humans, but by our kind too. Somewhat her gone. Why? She carries blood the wrong. People fear. Her children may carry a dormant gift. Ancient, powerful. Many would rather see them disappear than rise. Rick lowered his gun slightly. Then you know I won't let that happen. The alien nodded. I believe you. But others won't. He handed Rick a small round device. This is a signal jammer. Use it. You're already being watched. Rick took it. What do I call you? The alien turned away. No one. I'm already dead to both sides. Back inside, Rick placed the jammer near the window. Its light turned. Green-active. Niva looked up. What's that? Insurance, Rick said. And a promise. She looked tired, broken. But she managed to ask, why do you keep fighting for us? Rick didn't answer right away. Then he said simply, because you're worth fighting for. Far across the colony, inside a dark room, a hooded figure watched flickering footage on a screen. It showed Rick, Neva, the children. The figure leaned forward and whispered, found you. The lights went out. All at once, every bulb in Rick's house flickered and died. The heater stopped. The jammer blinked once. Then turned red. Rick stood up slowly from the chair near the window. His voice was calm but sharp. Get the kids. Now Neva didn't ask questions. She had seen this before in the war. The silence before an attack. She ran for the children sleeping upstairs. Rick grabbed his pulse rifle, flipped the safety off, and moved to the main door. Outside, the cold wind carried a sound he hadn't heard in years. The low hum of anti-grav. Boots. Someone or something was landing nearby, and they weren't coming to talk. From the tree line, dark shapes moved, 3 of them, no uniforms, no colors, just shadows wearing black armor and glowing visors. Rick aimed his weapon. Turn back. He shouted. No answer. One of them raised a small disc and threw it. The disc hit the house wall and exploded with a loud crack of electricity. Sparks flew. The door blew open. Rick fired first 1 bolt, then 2. 1 intruder fell. The other 2 split. 1 rushed left. The other disappeared behind the barn. Rick backed up as Neva came down the stairs with her children in her arms. She was pale, eyes wide. They're here, she whispered. Rick nodded. Take them to the crawl space. Lock it from the inside. I'm not leaving you alone. You're not. You're protecting them. Go. She ran without arguing. Outside, the 2 remaining intruders regrouped. 1 had a scanner tracking heat signatures. Inside the crawl space, the kids held their breath. Neva pressed her hand over her daughter's mouth as the scanner beeped overhead. Rick fired again, this time from the second-floor window, forcing the attackers to move. But they weren't here to kill Rick. They were here for the children. One of them yelled something in an alien tongue. Take the boy alive. Kill the rest if needed. Rick's blood boiled. He threw a smoke grenade out the window and rushed down with a combat blade in hand. The house shook as another blast hit the side wall. Wood splintered. The attacker charged inside. Rick met him in the hallway. Close combat, quick, brutal. The soldiers slashed, but Rick dodged and cut deep into the side of the intruder's armor. Sparks flew. The alien fell, twitching. But the last one, he was already at the crawl space door, trying to pry it open. Rick raised his rifle. Step away. The attacker didn't listen. He tore the hatch open, only to see Neva standing inside, shielding her kids. In her hand, Rick's old sidearm. She fired once, right into his neck. The alien dropped. Dead. The silence that followed was cold and heavy. Smoke filled the room. Rick stood shaking, heart pounding. He looked at Neva, who was breathing hard, still holding the gun. The children were crying but safe. Rick dropped to his knees beside them. They wanted the boy, he said softly. Neva nodded. They know what he is now. Rick touched the glowing mark on the boy's back. It pulsed again, brighter than ever. This is bigger than us now, Rick said. They won't stop. Neva looked at him with pain in her voice. Then what do we do? Rick stood. We make it official. I adopt them. Hours later, the sun rose over the broken house. Rick stepped outside, holding the burnt helmet of one of the attackers. He placed it on a fence post like a warning. Far above the planet, a satellite camera zoomed in on it. In a control room across the stars, a rich alien baron leaned back in his chair and smiled. Rick stood in front of the judge with alien blood on his boots. Not fresh blood. Old. Dried. A reminder of what he had to walk through to stand here. Beside him stood Neva, her head held high. For the first time, in her arms, her daughter. And next to her, holding Rick's hand, was the boy. The child with the glowing mark. The small courtroom inside the human colony base was silent. Everyone watched. Humans, a few aliens, security guards, even an ambassador from the Alien Relations Council. They all knew who Rick was now, and they all knew who these children could become. Mr. Rick Arden, the judge said in a serious tone. Do you understand the weight of your request? Rick nodded. Yes, ma'am. You are asking to adopt 2 alien children, one of whom is genetically marked with royal Lurian blood. If you do this, you may become a political target. You could be hunted. I've already been hunted, Rick said. They broke into my home. They tried to take them. They failed. The judge raised her eyebrows. And you still want to make them yours? Rick looked down at the children. Then he said softly but clearly, they already are. Outside the courtroom, the crowd waited. Some cheered. Some whispered in fear, some just stared. But when the doors opened and Rick stepped out with Neva and the children at his side, something changed. People moved aside. They didn't see a broken alien widow and 2 orphaned kids anymore. They saw a family. One that survived everything. Weeks passed. Rick rebuilt the broken parts of the house. With help. One human neighbor brought food. An alien merchant gave the children warm coats for free. The town, once filled with cold looks and stone hearts, began to shift, little by little. Kindness grew. One morning, Rick sat outside sipping coffee. The boy ran across the yard with a wooden sword, chasing his sister, who wore a blanket like a royal cape. Neva came out carrying a tray of fruit. She smiled. He smiled back. It felt like peace. It felt like home. Later that day, Neva sat beside Rick near the fence. She held his hand lightly, but without fear. She said, "You didn't just save us." Rick turned to her. "You saved what I thought I had lost forever. Hope. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he answered, "You gave it back to me too." That night, the children curled up in their beds. Neva stood in the doorway, watching them sleep. Rick came behind her, resting his hand gently on her shoulder. She whispered, "They still call me Mama. But now, they call you something too." Rick raised an eyebrow. "What?" She smiled. "Dad." His heart nearly stopped. He closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. That word, Dad, was heavier than any rifle he had ever carried. And yet somehow, it made him feel lighter than ever before. Final scene. Closing suspense, emotion, in a quiet part of the galaxy. The Baron who once ordered the children's capture received a message. Target lost. Location unknown. Earth-based colony refuses cooperation. The Baron snarled, but a voice beside him, calm wise, said, "Let them be. Even a flame must choose its home." The screen faded to black. Rick kissed Neva's forehead as they stood. Under the stars. The wind was calm. The children were safe, and for the first time in years, so was he.